Let's all keep our spirits up by looking at the mean comments on my channel and hopefully laughing at them. I found myself asking the question, should I just make videos like normal and basically ignore what's going on, or should I actually respond to it in some way? And for me, this is a way to respond to it. I'm hoping that you might get a few laughs out of this video, and if nothing else, it will provide you with a little bit of respite in what is ultimately quite a troubling time for all of us, and that's a bit of an understatement. But hey, I wouldn't be British if I wasn't sitting here making understatements, would I? Yes, there's a fly in the room. Yes, the cats are running around. Yes, there's background noise. No, there's not much I can do about that aside from swatting the fly when I see it, and I see it now. Let me try and get it. Oh, I got it. You have no idea how long I've been trying to get that fly. Anyway, let's get on with video. Hi, I'm Andy Fellows. I make videos on destructive cults, damaging norms, and just generally bad ideas. And today we're going to be looking at some mean comments from my videos from the last, 9-10 months or so, and responding to them with hopefully humor. Hopefully they don't annoy me too much. I've tried to pick comments which are in that kind of middle area between being just boring and not interesting at all and being like really, really nasty, because there are some really, really nasty ones. So I'm going for like the middle area there. So there's some interesting stuff that I hope I can respond to, and then there's some stuff that's just silly. Let's have the first one. Shut up, of course you're a hater. You are European descent with your painted nails. Who would ever trust you? By the way, I've removed like the names of the people and stuff because I just thought, first of all, I don't want to expose people that are being nasty to further nastiness. And also I didn't want to give them the satisfaction of appearing in a video with their name and stuff. So I've just cut that out. This comment was on my video about Ralph Smart. What makes me laugh about this is it almost seems to predicate the assumption that I am a hater on the evident reality of my European descent. I don't think that being European means that I'm definitely a hater. It's just a very strange thing to say. Also, who would ever trust you because of being European and having painted nails, which I don't at the moment because I want to be able to wash my hands and know I'm getting everything clean and things aren't, nail varnish. I don't know how much of a difference that makes, so I'm just not doing it at the moment. But who would ever trust you with your painted nails? If someone's not trusting someone on account of them having painted nails, that's a significant portion of the population normally that they're not trusting. I suppose the assumption is that I have whatever this is, facial hair, whatever this is, and that means I shouldn't have painted nails. But we do make a surprising number of exceptions. I just spat then. The other thing as well, shut up. It's like they're watching the video and they got so angry. Shut up. Honey, you clearly don't have any mental strength. Think for yourself. I don't understand the whole leaving her cult. Just don't watch her videos. I'm neutral with. Some info is useful, others are not. Some people overthink things way too much. You have the power to decide your life path. So I think when it comes to undue influence, the pool of the power to decide is somewhat muddied. The water is muddied there because it becomes very complex because of the influence that these people have over other people, I mean, just don't watch her videos. That's easier said than done when it's giving you so much information that you think is true about a life that, oh, there's Ned, this other way of seeing things, this whole map of reality that you're adhering to, and you're waiting for the next one every week to tell you how to see things that are happening, how to think about things that are happening. That's effectively what was the case for me. And from other people I've spoken to, that was the case for them too, waiting for that next video to come out. Okay, so just don't watch your videos if you don't like them. The issue is not that I didn't like them. The issue is that I liked them too much, if anything. And then realized, actually, I wasn't in a great place because I was following this advice. I wasn't doing very well because of that. I don't watch them half as much now as I used to. Ned likes that lamp, by the way. That's just his thing. We're just going to let him do that. And honey, you clearly don't have any mental strength. Think for yourself. Okay, but we are talking about a younger version of me who was much more naive, wasn't aware of the dangers of just going on the internet and taking advice from random people. That was a part of it, yeah. And these things are there, and when they're positioned as an answer to something, then obviously there's a risk of people taking that seriously. I mean, if I was sitting here telling you this is the answer to this problem that you've got, there's a significant chance that you might take what I'm saying and then go and act on it. And I think it comes down to being responsible to ensure that when you say, like what I always say in my videos, I'm not an expert on this, I'm not a professional, I don't have any qualifications with regards to the things I'm talking about. I'm a concerned person, I'm making observations, I'm sharing my point of view. Please do your own research. Like, those kinds of disclaimers don't tend to be made when there's people on the internet who are positioning themselves as teachers, as leaders, and don't seem to know their limits. They seem to overstep their boundaries quite a lot. So yeah, in terms of mental strength, I mean, what does that even mean? That's lacking a definition that I feel it needs in order for it to make much sense. I mean, what is mental strength? What is mental strength? And what does this person mean by it? I don't know. Next comment, society is a cult. You just got scared. Fuck off. It's not psychology. If you had a sensitive nervous system, you'd know that you can't suppress emptions. What this society cult has been doing, and if your family member is a fucking tyrant, you should alienate him. So for me, that flags up as concerning. If you're watching a video and you are getting from it the idea that you should alienate your family, for me that's concerning. Now, obviously, if your family member is a fucking tyrant, then perhaps, yeah, there may be cause for that. But I think a better course of action before discerning whether or not someone is a tyrant is to avoid randos on the internet giving advice and go and speak to a professional therapist or something to help you gain a bit of clarity. If it's a family member, if you've grown up with this family member, your ability to discern whether or not they're a tyrant may be affected somewhat. If you started to feel like maybe they are, speak to a professional. That would be my opinion on that. I don't know about suppressing emptions and things like that. The whole society as a cult is an interesting one. I don't know that society is a cult. I've been thinking recently about whether capitalism is somewhat cult-like, but I don't know enough about what underpins it and how it all really works when, you know, other than my experience in it as a person, to have an opinion on that. I'd be interested in looking into that and maybe making a video on that at some point in the future. You just got scared, fuck off is an amazing thing to say to anyone who's sharing their personal experience on the internet. Thank you for that. A lot of this is the idea about you can't suppress emotions, which I don't know that that's true. I think that's an assumption that's been made by someone somewhere along the line, that you can't suppress emotions because they'll come out anyway. And yet here we all are necessarily suppressing quite a lot of panic right now in the world. We're all doing our best to deal with the way that we're feeling. I believe that the current state of the planet and the fact that there are many people who aren't just doing whatever it is that they're feeling and thinking, especially now that tensions are high, is to some extent evidence that we can suppress emotions and that it's a necessary part of emotional regulation, not to stop or invalidate an emotion, but to say right now, I'm not going to let this thing choose how I act. I might acknowledge it, maybe, or I might say, do you know what? I know I'm not feeling good, but I'm not going to deal with this right now because there's this really important thing that needs to happen. I'm just going to get through it and then I'm going to come back. That would be a temporary suppression, perhaps, or a temporary repression of emotion. I guess, as I say, I'm not an expert, I'm not a psychologist, I don't necessarily understand these things. However, what I would say is that I think at this point in our lives, as people many of us who have never experienced anything like this before, it's requiring something more of us emotionally. It's requiring a sense of emotional regulation that I don't think maybe New Age philosophies are equipping people for. A lot of what I've seen from the New Age people in my comments in the last couple of days as a response to what's going on, and in general, as I've seen it around, seems to be an I told you so, especially on my predictions response video, which I just think is unwarranted, but predictable. I think you can suppress emotions. It can be done. That is a false statement to say that you can't suppress emotions, I think. And the claim that the society cult is doing that, we would have to verify that there is a society cult in order to establish whether or not they are doing this suppression of emptions. This guy, laughing my ass off, you sir are out of your tree. Now this was before I started going by they them, so I'm going to let the sir thing go. But you sir are out of your tree is I mean, I don't have a tree. I don't have a tree to be out of. Maybe somewhere someone has allocated a tree for me, in which case it would be a true statement to say that I'm not in that tree. However, it would be necessary for me as someone who, in fact, may or may not have ownership of a tree to be aware of said tree so that I could get into that tree. So if you know of my tree, if you've seen my tree, if you know I have a tree, please go ahead, let me know where that tree is, and I will do my utmost to get back into it. You do not understand, and you are out of your tree. Same. I don't know if you picked up on this, but this is a comment from the same person who is still insisting that I'm not in my tree. But we've been over this. Just let me know where the tree is, and I'll jump on in. This, the next one. Nobody can trust this rando guy's authority either. Laughing my ass off. You both come from trauma. It's ob. Just focus on lifting people up, not tearing them down. Go get prof help, dude. So this is one of the funnier ways that I've seen this put, but it is one version of a comment that I get a lot, which is, don't focus on tearing people down. Don't focus on negative things. Don't focus on what you don't like. Focus on lifting things up. Focus on what you do like. Focus on, and obviously that extends from the law of attraction. If you haven't seen the videos I did recently with the Prophet of Zod about the law of attraction, picking some of that to pieces, highly recommend that. There's some links to in the description to those videos. But it's a version of that kind of a rhetoric, like, you know, don't focus on what you don't want, focus on what you do want. And of course, it is dependent on a belief in the law of attraction or some idea of, you know, focusing on the positive and not on the negative. The issue is, if you only focus on the positive and you don't focus on the negative goes unnoticed, and then it increases. And we've dealt with this in What You Resist Persists, which is the second episode of my new series, Silly Cult Claims, which I just mentioned that I did with Prophet of Zod. I think a large part of the silliness of this kind of a statement is evident when you think of the idea of tolerance and intolerance. So if we have a largely tolerant society and intolerance makes an appearance in that society, the way to get rid of intolerance is to be intolerant towards the intolerance and then to return to tolerance as quickly as possible. That's how I think of it, right? So when we're talking about people who are offering advice on the internet that is potentially damaging, especially as I always say, general advice offered, like kind of like broad advice, general advice offered generally without disclaimers made for who should or shouldn't listen to that advice. That kind of thing, in my mind, is quite concerning. And I think it's important to point that out. It's important to make those points so that when people hear those points, they're going to go, right, okay, maybe I'll think about this a little bit more. It's important to highlight some of the damaging things. If we just ignore them, they don't always go away. In some cases they might do, but generally speaking, I don't think that they would. Also, nobody can trust this rando guy's authority either. Laughing my ass off. Yeah, I don't have any authority. I'm not saying that I do. I'm not someone who's sitting here going, I have authority, listen to me. It's just not happening. As I've already said in this video in response to another comment, I make it abundantly clear that I'm not an expert. Thank you for thinking that I might have the authority that some people might listen to. I appreciate that you see me in such high regard. However, I'm going to have to disagree. I don't have authority. Look things up for yourself. Do your own research. Make your own mind up. Yeah, just know. Next comment. Andy, what you're doing is comparing your standard to others. But the trick here is that everybody is on another level of understanding. Wisdom is recognizing every individual is on their own life path. You are not God. You are not here to judge these people. What is unconditional love? Everybody is included in the source, even your enemies. You should love the fact that each and everyone gets their lessons, gets their own lessons. That is what an enlightened master does. So there's several assumptions made in this. Let's break it down. One of them, wisdom. First of all, wisdom is recognizing every individual is on their own path. So the commenter's opinion of wisdom, the commenter's point of view of wisdom is that every individual is on their own life path, and wisdom is to recognize that, right? Okay, fine. You are not God. You are not here to judge these people. Okay, no, I agree with you. I'm not God. You are not here to judge these people. I guess is based on the idea that only God can judge people. I don't believe there is a God, so I think that it does fall to individual people to make some judgments. Maybe not grandiose judgments, but certainly some degree of judgment does fall to people. What is unconditional love? I love this. It's just like I have opinions. Listen to my opinions about standard and everyone, blah, 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 wisdom, and then God. And then it goes, what is unconditional love? It's just out of left field. There's just this question, what is unconditional love? Like that the commenter was writing, and then they just had a short break to ponder. and then return to making points. And I really feel like this what is unconditional love is a little bit of a red herring, so I'm just going to breeze on past and go to everybody is included in the source, even your enemies. So I guess this is a return to the assertion that there is a God source, which I believe is a term that's used quite a lot. Scientology used source to refer to L. Ron Hubbard, I think, and then obviously I've heard Esther Hicks under the saying it's Abraham Hicks, but Esther Hicks, because I don't necessarily believe that there is an Abraham Hicks at this point. I mean, okay, so I'm sure there's an Abraham Hicks, but I don't think that they're a collective of entities speaking through Esther Hicks. That's a whole rabbit hole to go down if you're ever interested. Maybe I'll do a video about that in the future. It says everybody is included in the source, even your enemies. Okay, fine, whatever. That's your belief. You're entitled to it. I just don't agree. You should love the fact that each and everyone gets their own lessons. I love that you think that I should love what you think I should love. But that kind of a rhetoric rarely ends well. We can see that across the world in many cases not ending well. For a community that I'm part of, actually, the LGBTQ plus community, that doesn't work out particularly well very often. However, that's an extreme example, and let's rein it in. Let's not straw man this. You should love the fact that each and everyone gets their own lessons. Okay, fine. I don't think people get their own lessons. I think people learn lessons, and it is largely, I would say, down to a choice to observe what's happening in a given person's life, and then from that, gather some degree of knowledge, some degree of insight, some degree of what you could call wisdom. But that's down to the faculties and the capacity of that person to perhaps step back from the situation and look at it from a little bit of a broader view and get a new point of view from that. I don't think that everybody gets their own lessons as if given lessons by source or God in some way. I don't necessarily agree with that. And here what we're doing, it seems, is raising the bar. This is what an enlightened master does. If you were an enlightened master, you would do that. Maybe. We would have to verify that enlightened masters do exist, but maybe. However, I'm not, so I won't. Focusing on others in a non-positive light only shows your own sickness. Okay, I mean, you're entitled to your opinion on that, and I'm not sure how you came to that conclusion. Again, I think it's down to a law of attraction-y idea, non-positive light. It seems like even there's an avoidance of using the word negative here. It's like, don't use the word negative, because the vibration of the word negative is negative. Obviously, that's conjecture. I don't know what this person's intending in writing this, but dear young Andy, I have been around spirituality for 53 years with Paramahansa Yogananda. You have not found the right fit for you just yet. It is too early to say I lost faith. I have experienced samadhi and the ecstasies. Right, well, that's not spelt right. But maybe English isn't your first language. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. And the ecstasies of that state. I like the fact that you are at all interested in spirituality. Keep going, keep digging. Only the divine experience will make you believe at 100%. Again, this is a version of a comment I get quite often. People just saying, don't lose hope. You've had one bad experience. Just keep going with this. And I do feel like that's kind of condescending in my view. It's, you think you're right, you think there's more, you think I haven't seen it, and you think that I'm wrong in my judgments and my experiences and my point of view. Having arrived at that point of view, navigating the world in the way that I have and have survived until nearly 27 years old doing that. Now, I can definitely appreciate how an older person might see things that way, because they may have had a similar experience to me at this point and then gone another way. However, I can say with some certainty that unless I am absolutely blown away by an experience, it would be very difficult for me to even entertain the possibility that there is in fact a God or some form of divine or something like that beyond the material. Now, obviously the material isn't everything here. I don't understand when people say, are you materialist? Because I think that we've established now, as far as I understand it, we've established now something beyond the material, right? In through the exploration of physics and things on a subatomic level. Is that material or not? I don't know. This thing of like, it's too early to say, don't say I've lost faith too soon. I can't imagine at this point anything that would convince me, and that may be somewhat of an issue in terms of being open-minded to this, but I have sat and I've thought about what I would need in order to be convinced, and at this point I can't imagine anything that would convince me. It's difficult for me to ignore the reality that if ever I am to experience something, my body would still be present, my brain would still be present. And, there's definitely an argument for, people say, but some people have near-death experiences, their body is dead for a moment and then they're thinking, then they have an experience and they come back and blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of ambiguity there. I think if you have an experience where you do die for a second and then they are able to bring you back to life through the magical wonders of modern medicine. Not magic, don't take that too seriously. I'm using the word loosely. Then obviously, I can appreciate that point of view. I can understand why someone might think that. However, I also think that there's a reasonable explanation in saying that maybe in the moments that someone was returning to life, or they were coming back to life, and we would have to define what life is. But as someone was coming back to life in the way that we might colloquially use the word life, that they may have had an experience which they, upon regaining consciousness, rationalized and fit into their worldview that was already there before they had the experience. I would say that near-death experiences, people who were raised on Christianity are more likely to experience a Christian near-death experience, where they might see Jesus or something like that, or they might see a loved one that they believe is in heaven and is there. I could see that being the case, but I just am not convinced on that one. So at this point, I can't imagine anything that would make me regain faith or have faith in a God or in anything divine or anything like that. And it doesn't really provide me with any mental health benefits to believe in those things, given that my values are that of I'm interested in having the least wrong set of answers rather than being comfortable with an answer that may be wrong. So I'll leave that one there. I appreciate the cap locks in this one. It really, there's a real sense of determination to get through to me that I get from this. But no, I don't agree. And I don't know how old I would have to be to change my view on that. I don't know that age would. And if becoming an older person, if encroaching on death were to make me change my point of view, I doubt that I would be changing that point of view because of new information. It may be for emotional reasons, and as of now, I don't think that would be something that I would be comfortable doing or making any assertions based on emotional reasons, because emotions are, of course, a consequence of the body. Here's another one. Culture, give me a fucking break. You are the proof in the pudding. Chill. I am pissed I ever gave to all of the different religions, but at least I wasn't forced as the governments do. Think on that. This is one of those kind of nonsense comments that you get it's just like someone's had maybe 100 thoughts, and then they've plucked at random from those 100 thoughts, maybe 5, maybe 10, and then they've gone, and then they've just written them up in a comment. I'm pissed I ever gave to all the religions. I'm sorry that if you're someone who has devoted your life to a religion and it didn't help you, if you feel like you've wasted time or resources or something, I'm sorry that you feel that way. Not much to be done about that at this point. I suppose you have to just make your peace with it and try and move on. Unless obviously we're talking about a cult situation or one of those situations where it's not quite as simple as just moving on, in which case I wish you all the best. Platonism and Aristotelian philosophy, never said those words before, is a far better alternative than just atheism. Just because New Age spirituality is garbage doesn't mean you should resort to materialism right off the bat without any true thorough analysis. Don't assume that I haven't done any thorough analysis. I have done thorough analysis. I've thought about things a lot. I've engaged every single thought on this in my mind that has arisen and questioned it, and I've looked into this a lot. I may not be well versed in traditional philosophy. I may not have all that knowledge. Equally, my point of view is valid and it's fine for me to believe this. New Age spirituality is garbage. I agree with that. Does that mean I should resort to materialism right off the bat? No, it doesn't. But as I say, you don't know how much analysis I've done. You don't know how much I've thought about this. You have no idea. So don't make assumptions. Don't be a dickhead. We need less of those in the world. You are so much in your mind. Try the feelings. I'm going to have to say here that feelings are in the mind. That's what I believe. Feelings are a consequence of the brain, and the mind, I also believe, is a consequence of the brain. Maybe feelings aren't in the mind, maybe they exist parallel to each other. Who knows? You see this a lot in New Age circles, don't think, feel. Now, I would have some strong objections to that as a point of view, because I think it's very important for individuals to think for themselves. I think skepticism and critical thinking are really important, and I think it's important for each of us to navigate the world using our faculties as best we can. Feelings are useful and important, yes, and they should be taken into consideration. But if we're just doing feeling all the time, if we're just basing everything on our feelings, then it could lead us into some real trouble, because feelings often fail to take everything into account, or at least as much into account as perhaps thinking about things does. However, have you ever had a feeling and not been thinking? Have you ever had a thought that was separate from a feeling? I just don't know that there's a real clear line between one and the other. Maybe there is, but I just don't see that that's the case. The next one, so much talking, which I love. And actually, I already replied to this one. I said, you're in the wrong place if you just want silence for an hour. They wrote that on like a hour-long video. And I mean, what are you going to get? You go onto YouTube, there are some videos that are just like music or whatever that aren't talking, but let's be fair, you're on YouTube. What do you expect? Come on now. Videos like this are made possible by my wonderful patrons, whose names you're going to see at the end of the video. If you want to help support the channel, the best way to do that is through Patreon. There's a bunch of perks over there. Please check that out if you're interested. Otherwise, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel to see more content from me on destructive cults, damaging norms, and just generally bad ideas. I'll just end the video now by saying, please be kind. Now more than ever, please be kind and ask good questions. And I'll see you in the next one.